Hey guys, Bix Weir, roaddoer.com. I'm here with my friend for life, Will Lehr of Perpetual Assets. We are going to talk everything. Everything goes here today, and I'm really excited to have you back, Will. How you been? What's going on? And anything exciting in your world?
Well, great to be back. Thank you for that introduction. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to see your pretty face and hear your voice in live format, not just your daily videos. Yeah, man, life is good. It's been a great year as we wind up 2019. What's today? December 20th. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy Hanukkah, all that good stuff. Yeah, man, nothing crazy new. Business has been good. We're Perpetual Assets. We've got a whole lot of stuff on our plate. We're redoing our website and branding, and a whole lot of changes are coming. So that's been a lot of work, but fun work. So it's exciting, man.
That's good. And one of the reasons I wanted to get you on, I wanted to tell everybody out there that you guys do large crypto purchases, safe and secure way to get your cryptos. You do the self-directed IRAs, but the crypto purchases, I know a lot of people with a lot of money on the road to ruin are saying, I'd love to invest in cryptos, but I don't feel like I know what I'm doing when I go to buy on these criminal exchanges. Perpetual Assets are your guys. They've been doing it for a long time. They know how to do it safely. I think they're $10,000 minimum.
Correct. Yep.
No maximum.
No
if
max.
You have $1 billion, yes, put it all in Litecoin. Absolutely. No,
as long as there's market liquidity. Yeah. No, as long as there's market liquidity. If the market cap can handle it, we can get it in, right? It's an over-the-counter type of offering too. So we don't, on larger transactions, we don't, there's no slippage in the order. So you're not actually, you're buying private market. So it's not, if you go try to put $1 million trade on through an exchange or through the market buys, you'll move the price and it'll hurt you because you'll have to, the majority of your order will be filled at higher prices going all the way up. So it's not like that on the private market. It's off market transactions. So
there you go. Direct access to OTC, perpetualassets.com. What's your phone number?
888-281-2630. I've memorized it now.
I have said a wrong number so many times when I talk about Perpetual Assets. I don't know why. Or just go to the website, perpetualassets.com.
Yep.
What I want to do today is, one, let's talk a little about cryptos. And I am hugely focused now on the criminality of the exchanges. The volumes we see on the public exchanges are so ridiculous. In the last 24 hours, I think it's 1.5 of all Litecoin that has ever been mined traded hands on these criminal exchanges. That's what they do. They don't trade real cryptos. They trade derivatives of cryptos. It is so similar to what I've been fighting in gold and silver, even in the stock market, the bond market, the Forex markets, all commodity markets. Bart Chilton, the old CFTC chairman, who passed away recently after he said that JPMorgan was rigging the markets when he was at the CFTC. He wrote a book called Ponzimodium, which is all about the fake trading and fake assets that are in our world. Everything's a Ponzi scheme when you look on the exchanges, and it doesn't matter what exchange. This whole new BAX thing, I have no idea. They even claim not to be a true crypto exchange. They're a futures exchange. And theoretically, they're supposed to hold cryptos in storage. The people who are in charge of holding the cryptos at back is Bankers Trust Mellon, which is part of the deep state crypto cabal. If you guys don't know that, watch Crypto Chico's latest expose on Backed. 100% designed and created to rig the market of cryptos. And we had actually an admission from Chris Giancarlo, the head of the CFTC, that they're the ones that brought down the Bitcoin price in 2017. You need to watch his discussion of how he and Trump and Gary Cohn and Steve Mnuchin got together and decided They needed to take down the Bitcoin price. It is astounding that this is allowed in a free market society. This is why the United States is their standing in the world is diminishing extremely fast, is that we are liars, we are cheaters, and we need to get rid of these criminal exchanges. So to be safe, buy through Perpetual Assets, who has access to backroom OTC markets for the cryptos. And yeah, what's your take on these exchanges, and do you think we can get rid of them?
Man, I think it's just a matter of time before we have another, whether it's orchestrated or not, a type of a Mt. Gox type of event, whether it's a proof of keys thing where just enough people withdraw their tokens, their coins from the exchanges, and the exchanges have a failure to deliver. I mean, we've seen cogs in the wheel already with not even that large of transactions when we do put them through an exchange, which we have the option to do on smaller transactions. So I think until we see truly decentralized platforms, decentralized exchanges where the price discovery, I mean, okay, if we look at gold and silver markets, the price discovery, where the price comes from, okay, what's silver today? You know, 17.95.
17.25, yeah.
17.25. So that, I was just throwing that out. So that price, where does it come from? It comes from the COMEX, right? From the futures market, where thousands and thousands upon times the leverage of the underlying physical asset is traded in paper contracts. You've covered this extensively, and that sets the price essentially. And that's where the price is derived from until, and I think it's similar with precious metals, until we have a hiccup that's going to likely be from a physical supply issue where enough people are trying to remove enough physical metal from the system and it breaks, there's not enough physical there. Then we'll have a true price discovery. And I think it's the same with cryptos. We've got these exchanges that are trading hundreds of times the underlying asset that they supposedly hold, or at least that the blockchain that confirms is in their wallet. And it's, yeah, man, that's where the price is derived, you know, from these exchanges. So until we, and this technology, I mean, this movement, this revolution is so, it's so incredibly, there's so many incredible applications to blockchain, right? I mean, you just like think of a certain human interaction or economic interaction or financial, like there's almost always a blockchain solution in so many cases. And so I think that as this ecosystem is still very new, right? And as it's developing more, I am confident that there will be decentralized platforms where people can exchange, where the price is actually discovered on a physical basis, and eventually that's where the market will go. Maybe it takes a big exchange going down and people losing, another Mt. Gox type of scenario, but the infrastructure has to be in place, obviously, for the decentralized platforms to be up and running. So hopefully all that stuff's being built as we speak. But I think
I think it is. I think it is being built.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yesterday I had coffee with Phil Champagne, who wrote the Book of Satoshi. And the Book of Satoshi is a culmination of a lot of, I would say most of the important Satoshi emails and correspondence that Satoshi was having in the first 2 years before he disappeared from the scene. And I've been digging into that book. There's an audiobook. You can get that book on Amazon, or there's an audiobook or a Kindle book. But if you want to get into the mind of Satoshi, this book is amazing. It's called the Book of Satoshi. So I've been listening. I was in the car for a couple hours driving up and down to my dad's vineyard, and I'm listening to this. I'm putting myself back, 2008, 2009. It was like November 1st, I think, 2008, when Satoshi put out his first email to like a cryptographic chat room and said, "Hey, I think I've invented something here." And then it was, I think, later that month, or maybe even December of 2008, that he published the white paper. It was later that month, I believe. And then the first block was mined January 4th, I think. Anyway, so I'm going back there, and the discussions that were being had about, it's not only about, what the computer programming should look like, and have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Have you thought of this? it was amazing the amount, how complete it was, even in the first days. Obviously, there's been changes and upgrades and things like that, mostly to add different functionality. But you know, I'm putting myself back there 10 years ago and saying, my God, it has come so far and spread so wide, and the whole concept of what you can do with the blockchain has changed so much. They talked a little about it, but not much in the early days. It was a peer-to-peer currency. So when you say, you know, it's just the early days, it is just the early days for the 7 billion people on planet Earth. But this thing has grown and developed for the last 10 years into something, an amazing tool for humanity. And Satoshi was also talking about that, the reason he did it, and very much a libertarian, and the freedom of a decentralized type of money with no third party decider of who gets what and how they get it. And I mean, it's an amazing book and an amazing discussion that was going on between Satoshi and some of the very early days. I would call them kind of developers, but more like people interested in money and cryptography and the cryptocurrencies. Most people didn't even, in the early days, didn't even believe that it would work because so many had failed before that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's an amazing book. You guys gotta check that out, and it really does give you a perspective about how brilliant Satoshi was in the very early days to foresee all these problems and issues, and literally before the white paper was introduced. And you know, as to who Satoshi is, and you know, you guys know who I think it is. Most likely, it was the world's best and first financial computer programmer, Alan Greenspan. I do believe I have some clues in the road to Ruta. I've been digging into some stuff. I have some clues that Satoshi might even be, the true identity of Satoshi might be revealed this year, which I'm still fleshing it out, still doing a lot of research, but
this year as in 2019?
As in 2020.
2020, okay.
This coming year, which would be amazing. I do think it was a culmination of a group of people. Obviously, the Bitcoin protocol, where we can use it as a peer-to-peer currency, there's a lot of things that had to happen. You know, going back in the day, you need John Kennedy to invent shareable computer programming for people to have, you know, see the blockchain and know what they're talking about. And that was in the 60s. You need Greenspan inventing the first financial computer programs back in the 60s and 70s. You need Steve Jobs to put the computer in our hand with the iPhone. The internet, the development of the internet, the World Wide Web, was all this stuff had to be created, and all of it can be added to who invented Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer currency. But who is Satoshi? It might be a group of people. But if my early research is correct, there are hints that Satoshi will be revealed in 2020.
Interesting. Well, 2020 is, I mean, I can't imagine we're going to have a boring year. You know, I mean, it's everything from what is Cliff, what are they calling it? Year zero?
The government, according to Cliff's data, who searches government websites and the kind of the hidden parts of the government websites, they're all referring to the year 2020 as year zero in the deep state government world.
Jeez. Have you done any research on that, like historical connotation? I mean, what does that potentially mean? A reset, right?
Well, you can look at it as financial. What Cliff was saying, it has more to do with feeding the populations and calories consumed and things like that. But yeah, financial reset, I would say it's pretty obvious now that something very large is happening. Biggest, all the markets except cryptos and the commodities are in the biggest bubble ever. And crypto commodities are controlled, so they're funneling all this inflation into mainly the stock market. And that is at beyond bubble calculations. Everybody's running even the trading programs and everything's blowing out of the top. But here's the deal, I think, with the whether we'll have a stock market crash or something else, the good guys who control the system with the computer programs behind the scenes, they don't want anybody to win in this transition. They know how chaotic it's going to be. It could be that they don't crash the system because there's so many people putting shorts on now. They're trying to game the system. It could be it just locks up, and the computer trading bots kind of fight against each other and completely lock up all systems because they're the ones that control everything now. There is no free markets. It's all controlled with computers and computer bots at the bank level, at the central bank level, at the treasury level. And all it takes is whoever has the most computing power, which is probably the Fed and the Exchange Stabilization Fund and the Treasury. All they have to do is click a mouse and have all their trading bots crash into each other and freeze up every single exchange out there. I think that's what's going to happen at some point. I think watching the crypto viewing guys' view of the US dollar in the future, that's what they show happening.
Really?
Dick Allgaier got a really clear vision of this. And it makes sense because there would be no winners. Everything would just stop, and then they'd have to rejigger the system, reallocate money within each individual nation. But all debt will be destroyed, which is cool, but all assets that you don't have in your own possession will be destroyed as well. So very interesting time, a great time to get your assets in your own possession, especially your IRA accounts. That's what Will and Gus are the pros at, is getting these IRA accounts rolled over into a self-directed IRA in your own possession. It takes a little while, so if you're going to do it quickly. I have a lot of people saying, well, what if there's not enough time? Well, if there's not enough time, you're going to lose it anyway in the old system. So I'd say, yeah, it takes about a month to do, but if there's not enough time, you would have lost it anyway, type of thing. So, really crazy, interesting times in our world. But I do want to talk to you about something that I rarely talk about, because, this is just guys hanging out talking. What is your current take on on the impeachment and that whole debacle going on?
Dude, it is so fascinating, the political space since Trump was elected, right? It's been a couple years of just trying to assess everything and, try to remain somewhat neutral, because if politics has taught me anything, the current political system has taught me anything in the last decade of red pillness, is that there's so many lies. There's so many illusions. The whole freaking thing is an illusion, right? The whole financial system, the whole government, all of it. I think I got a little sour with what happened with Ron Paul. Ron Paul was a breath of fresh air when we needed it, and then it was just the system just squashed the whole movement. It was very kind of suck the wind out of your sails kind of a feeling, right? So since that, I've been cautiously optimistic with the Trump phenomenon, revolution. I mean, this is. But the more and as I enter into very interesting, unheated conversations with some friends, a particular couple friends of mine that are not really on the left, they kind of come from more of at least one of them comes similar roots as me, kind of a libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, he acknowledges though that in order to make effective change in certain parts, certain areas, you have to work in the system to a certain degree, right? So I think he believes that a little more maybe than I do. I think the whole thing needs to just come unraveled and we need to rebuild from scratch. But it's been really refreshing for me to have positive conversations, unheated conversations about just this. And these are with friends that are, maybe they don't watch the mainstream media, but there's a narrative, right? There's a narrative that Trump is a buffoon. He's a total jerk. I mean, what did he say just yesterday or the day before about the deceased? And I don't know any of the details, right? But the lady's husband, And he was like, well, maybe maybe he's looking up. I don't know. He just, you know, the gaffes, the things that he says. But yeah, man, the system does not like him. If there's anything that's obvious from when he was elected to what we've seen the last 2 years to this whole impeachment charade, you know, all the Democrats voted one way, none of the Republicans, totally obvious partisan issue, right? Yet they're still chanting impeach. It is obvious that the news media, which is what, 4 mega corporations at this point, 4, you know, it's obvious that the media and the Democratic Party, at least most of it, a lot of people in powerful places do not like him, and don't just dislike him like, you know, Republicans disliked Obama, and then, you know, I remember this vividly, and then Democrats disliked George W. Right? We had a lot of dislike in the last several presidencies from one side or the other. This is something entirely different. This is not just dislike. And I lived in Texas during Obama's reign, and with a lot of Republican-minded folks who were like, oh my God, our country is being dismantled. Like panic mode, but not having emotional breakdowns in the street and setting things on fire. Dude, just this reaction alone, and the narrative and the push from the media and the Soros organizations and the people setting Portland on fire and beating up grandmas, like, there's so much production behind the narrative that it just makes sense, man. It makes sense that there's a sheriff in town that's about to, you know, rip the carpet out from under, and it all lines up with this transitionary shift that humanity is headed into or has already started, right? The financial side of it, the control element, the sinister things that are happening behind the scenes. And why not have a whole nother element of this transitionary shift too? Let's not just have it being a financial, but let's actually purge a whole bunch of bad stuff and rebuild and start from scratch. So, oh man, it's such a circus though to watch this thing. You know, it's really, I mean, you watch, and then what is the deal with like Pelosi? Is she on drugs? And Biden? I mean, like, dude, I'm not the most articulate guy in the audience, but like, holy crap, man! They start talking about like, and the hair on my legs and the little kids and the pool. It's like, what are you? The memes that have, or the whatever that have come out from that are so hilarious. Man, it's such a circus. It is it's literally, if you unplug from it emotionally and take a step back and like watch it, I can't believe it's real. Truly.
I think that's the crazy thing for me is that these people haven't changed. They're doing the same thing they always did. It's just that we are more woke now, and we see, you always call him Crazy Joe Biden because he was always, sniffing little girls' hair and feeling them up in photo ops and stuff like that. And, and Pelosi, I don't even know if that is Pelosi. Yeah. Truthfully, there's a lot of people saying, it could be CGI, it could be a body double, a clone. I don't know what the hell's going on there.
Pictures.
She might have been taken out.
The Hillary photos. Have you seen the who? Wow, Hillary's like 30 years younger.
I know. I mean, it's gotten really bizarre and weird out there. But that's kind of part of it. You got the Democrats and the Republicans are both on the same side of the coin, and Trump and the good guys behind Trump. Now, Trump, to me, he's the bull in the china shop that Ron Paul could never have been. Ron Paul would have gotten eaten up by this machine, no matter how good and libertarian-minded he was. This machine is powerful. They needed a bull in the china shop to run cover for what was going on behind the scenes. I think they said, Trump, you're our man. Just get in there, be yourself, be the asshole you are, and the good guy you are, because they'll flip back and forth at the click of a, snap your fingers, and Trump is a good guy, saying, oh, these are great people, this is America's great, and then click your fingers again, and he's just being a psychotic asshole to someone. That has always been Trump's MO since, and he uses it to his advantage in negotiating, in business relations, and all his bankruptcies and all that. this is Trump. This is what he always was. And they knew they needed someone like that to run cover for what was really going on behind the scenes at the Fed, as far as arresting people in the pedophilia side, as far as getting the crooked politicians out. But you're right, we are heading, now it's not just financial. It's financial, it's political, it's the education system. It's all of the above, and the media and the social media, which is heavily controlled by the deep state still to this day. It'll be really interesting. This is all going to be brought out in the open and hopefully resolved in 2020, year zero, so that we can move forward. And the space economy. Cliff High's been talking about this for a while. He says the future of all economic systems is in space. And we do have the technology today. I posted it was an hour-long video yesterday in my Horn of Z's of this guy who has been involved in the secret space program and explains very clearly that the future of economics, China knows, is in space. It is not on the planet. There's so much more, yes, we are polluting the earth. We're using up all its natural resources, things like that. There's so much that can be done in space. For example, solar power. Beamed solar power. Obviously, you don't have atmospheric issues or anything with space. You put a little mirror and you beam it down to planet Earth into a solar collector, and boom, you've got free energy for everybody. But other types of energy, if you listen to Cliff High's interview on the Tesla technology, talking about the Tesla towers and how that works with positive and negative ions and all that can be done from space. What would it be like to have a cell phone that you never had to charge because it's collecting power from the Tesla technology? That's all that is space technology. And having some night vision goggles and knowing about Catherine Austin Fitz's $30 trillion that has not been accounted for, that all went into the space program. I mean, it is clear that we're way ahead of what we're telling people that rocket technology and things like that.
Dude, and that's another thing that fits into this shift. Disclosure, right? Disclosure that we're not alone, To your point, man, with whether it's night vision goggles, I mean, I've personally had sightings of crafts in San Diego multiple times. Some that were like, maybe you could argue that was a military plane doing something, and others that were like, a buddy and me on a rooftop. I mean, it was like, I can't believe we just saw that. Neither one of us had our phones, of course. Our phones were downstairs, but it was just one of those moments. It was a pretty long display as well. It was unbelievable, dude. Sober, totally sober.
Yeah, I mean, and I have too. I mean, in my whole life. And I'm thinking about going to get, those hypnosis regressions because there's certain moments in my life I'm like, well, wait a minute, what was going on there that I cannot remember? So yes, this is kind of woo-woo for people, but the reality is, if you don't believe that there's higher technology that can fly around in our skies, that you can prove to yourself. Get some good night vision goggles. The Russian-made ones are the best ones. And you can look up in the sky for yourself and see this stuff flying around that is so far beyond our technology that it's mind-blowing. And then get into Catherine Austin Fitz's understanding of where all this money is going into military secret projects, and you'll get a better idea of what's really going on. I don't know if the government will ever disclose that we are not alone in the universe. I don't think they have to. There's enough people who know it. I think it's like 80% of the people now believe that there is life out there in the universe besides us on this little tiny rock, floating around, spinning around behind the sun as the sun goes through. The planets don't go around the sun. That's the dumbest thing ever. The sun is going, 60,000 kilometers or miles per hour around the Milky Way, and the planets would have to speed up and slow down and speed up. The sun's going like this. The planets are spiraling and being dragged by the gravity of the sun. It's that simple. DJ Sadu, I think this is the guy's name, who did a YouTube video of it, the heliocentric model of the universe. And you watch that and you're like, oh, that makes so much more sense than all that retrograde, motion and all that. It is all about the sun moving and dragging the planet spiraling behind it. But yeah, that stuff needs to be revealed and admitted by these idiotic scientists who are bought and paid for at universities. And oh my God, let's talk about student debt. You want to know why colleges are so expensive? It's because the government is paying for everybody to go to college through these college loans. It is the largest debt of the United States now, which is crazy. And these are the worst credits on planet Earth. College students.
It's
None of
everywhere,
that
man.
can be paid back. That's why the Democrats are saying, hey, let's forgive all the loans. Let's give money out. Socialism doesn't work, my friends. I hate to tell you. We got to crash the entire system, get rid of all the debt, and start fresh with honest markets. And that's where cryptos come in. A true cryptocurrency that is not a proof of stake. Proof of stake is a fraud by the deep state guys. Dan Larimer and friends are 100% deep state. They control that world. With Steemit, with EOS and Block One, those guys are not who you want to be aligned with. That is a centralized, even the EOS block producers, the 21 block producers at EOS or whatever they're called, they even admit they collude every day. They've already frozen people out of the blockchain. They've removed transactions in the past. They told people about it in the beginning, which I think was really dumb on their part. They should have kept it secret. They do it all the time now. And nobody says, oh my God, it's completely decentralized. There's nothing decentralized about a proof of stake, any of these assets that are proof of stake. Now, for cryptocurrencies, I think it's required that you have proof of work. I think it's required that there's no way to change the blockchain in the past if you're going to have a cryptocurrency. With tokens, yeah, there's all kinds of reasons to do something like that. And if EOS wants to be some kind of token, yeah, that's fine. It's a fast spreadsheet is what it is, controlled by a certain amount of people, and I think highly by the deep state. And then you get into, okay, but there's other uses for cryptocurrencies, or not even cryptocurrencies, crypto tokens, crypto platforms. But I think cryptocurrencies as the prime use is as money needs to be proof of work because of the immutability factors, the centralization factors. There's just so many factors that go into that. So that's my commercial for proof of work versus proof of stake as a cryptocurrency, not necessarily as a token or a platform.
That block producers collusion makes me think of the silver fix or whatever, where the bankers
the gold fix. Well, they fix gold and silver, yeah.
Yeah, where they have the pre-market meeting, well, what are we going to set the price at this morning, boys?
Like it's 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock, I think, UK time. And that they even called it the gold fix and the silver fix.
Right.
That's the amazing, right in your face, we are fixing the price. And that's what the LBMA was in the past. Now they have some distorted computer program algorithm to do the exact same thing with a tiny amount of it's ridiculous. LBMA is a fraud, and the COMEX is a fraud. COMEX is just futures and options. Both of them trade over 100 billion ounces of silver every year. 100 billion ounces on planet Earth. The amount of hedging that might be needed, maximum amount, would be probably 3 billion is what Jeffrey Christian says. 3 billion in a full year, and they're doing over 100 billion. But that's maximum. The insanity of the Ponzimodium in our exchanges is ridiculous because they don't trade assets anymore. They trade derivatives of assets, and the derivative thing is going to bite the bad guys in the ass. I think it already is with all the repo bailouts that are going tonight only. We're at $141 billion needed tonight for the banks to stay in business, and they're handing out bonuses like it's candy right now.
Yeah. This is the real crime, and the fact that it's open news, but it's not as we're not talking like the TARP. People still remember TARP the TARP bailout. I was just having a conversation with some friends at dinner the other day, and one of my buddies was like, yeah, we're not bailing out the bank. He's not a Bix follower, right? This is just a friend. And he was like, we're not bailing out the damn bankers again this time, you know? And I was like, nice, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
And I was like,
if it ever gets to Congress, and that's the Fed, what the Fed is trying to do now is to facilitate a bailout without having to go to Congress. So they're doing it in little bits and in various forms, like overnight repos, which are a loan for a night that gets repaid the next day, but it always gets rolled over.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's term repos, which go out 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Now they're going out past the end of the year. The end of the year is huge in the repo market because that's when banks have to declare their position, and they have to be within certain guidelines of the regulators. So I'm expecting it to jump from like 440 right now to over $700 billion of bailouts that's in 2 weeks. And then it'll go down a little, but it'll continue to rise after that. If you look at 2008, they gave $700 billion to the banks as approved by Congress. The actual banker bailout, after all it was said and done for 2 years, they did a study, $28 trillion was needed to bail out the banks. 28 trillion. And this is probably 5 to 10 times bigger because it's not just mortgage-backed security, it's the bond market. Nobody believes in U.S. Treasury bonds anymore because they've rehypothecated them. Mm-hmm. 3 or 4 owners for a single Treasury bond. It's insane. And they're all using it as collateral for their derivative positions. JPMorgan Chase in the first quarter of 2019 increased their derivative book from $48 trillion, which is insane to start with, to $59 trillion in the first quarter. $11 trillion. It is insane what these criminals are getting away with.
The numbers are just astronomical too. I mean, you just keep adding zeros, you know? I mean, it's you mentioned social media a minute ago, and I had the thought about it being controlled, all deep state platforms, operated platforms. Did you see Jack Dorsey's tweet the other day about building a decentralized universe for Twitter to exist on? And he's like, Twitter will even be a client of it. Did you see that?
I didn't see it, but yes, I think decentralization is definitely the wave of the future and I think decentralization of the internet. They're talking about, they already have the technology doing internet from space so that you don't have to worry about landlines and all that stuff. That's part of the space economy, and that's what China's planning. China's they're ahead of us right now. At least I would say, not counting the secret space program, mm-hmm. that stuff. But what we see on here in the mainstream, China is blowing us away as far as developing a space economy. Mm-hmm. And cryptos obviously are perfect for a space economy. It's all throughout Cliff High's data is that the cryptos are the choice for the space economy. And if you watch this lecture from this guy, I forgot his name. I don't have it. It was yesterday. I posted on my Horn of Z's. If you watch that lecture, it becomes so clear to everybody that we need to pick up the pace as far as developing the space economy, because it'll help us here on planet Earth with all kinds of commodities can be found, natural resources can be found on other planets and actually in space. They talk about mining asteroids and all that. It is not out of our realm anymore. Space is the future, and we need to think about the future, not the past. Not past rocket technology and all this stuff. Anti-gravitic stuff is now not just a theory. It is doable. Cliff High is working on his flying RV. He says I can get there by 2028, 2029. I mean, if we put energy and effort into it and stopped hiding all these kind of secret technologies, who knows how much we can fix as far as the environment and the way energy is made. Obviously would be a huge change to planet Earth, but they're worried about the economy getting a hit because so much of it is reliant on fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. We don't need it. And if we open up space to the economic engine of ingenuity and creation, and allow people and stopping, get these regulators to go away from, regulating cryptocurrencies. The worst abuse of cryptocurrency regulation was the Veritasium attack by the SEC. It was insane. Why they attacked Reggie is because he invented a way around our current exchange system. He invented a way to do peer-to-peer exchanges for stocks, for bonds, for commodities. And the powers behind the SEC didn't like it, so they went after him with everything they got. And they didn't shut him down. They have settled, but they basically took back all of the ICO money almost. But Reggie didn't need it. I mean, Reggie owns 97% or 97 million Veritasium tokens that he has not released to the public, somewhere in that range. I think Snippy said just the other day, Reggie's broke and had to close his New York office. No, he's not broke. Yes, he had to close his New York office because the SEC has pretty much shut him down in the United States. But look at the rest of the world where Reggie was focused on, in Africa, in China. If you look at
Jamaica, he was meeting with had deals inked, as far as I know, with the Jamaican Stock Exchange.
Absolutely. And the SEC went behind Reggie's back, didn't tell him he was going in, and shut that deal down directly with the Jamaican Stock Exchange. They admitted it in court.
Wow.
And Reggie is definitely the target of the deep state, the criminals on Wall Street, because he invented something that takes them out. Yep. He invented a trustless system for exchanging capital assets. So I don't know right now. There's a lot of FUD about Veritasium. And usually when the FUD comes out, they try to slam the price down, and then they end up picking up all the coins that are available. There's not a lot of Veritasium coins out there. First of all, there's only, I think, 3 million or something like that out there out of the 100 million that were created. Now, Veritasium's not a cryptocurrency. It is a software platform for trading capital assets. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to invest in Veritasium, it's hard to get. If you have $10,000 and you go in to buy Veritasium, you're going to jack the price up 10%. All it takes is one smart hedge fund to go in there, and they already are. They're trying to get their hands on as much as possible before they jack the price up 10, 20, 100 times where it is. So yeah. We'll see. But definitely getting back to the regulators are stopping the advancement of technology on every front, especially in the space economy. That has to stop. You need so many approvals to do this bullshit. It is insane what they're trying to stop humanity's growth going forward. Mm-hmm. And that's what Trump and the guys behind Trump are trying to stop is the control by the deep state and by the bad guys, as I call them, behind the scenes. We need to get rid of them, and we need to move forward with truth and honesty starting in year 0, as they call it. So I'm really excited about the future, and especially the future for silver being released from manipulation. Just the RICO charges against JPMorgan for rigging. It's not against JPMorgan. It's against the JPMorgan traders. There's 6 of them that are getting charged with RICO charges, which is racketeering. Mm-hmm. And that all happened the day they announced 3 of the main guys that were rigging the silver and gold markets. The day that DOJ announced that, and they're all JPMorgan guys, was the exact same day that the repo interest rates spiked to 10%. Mm. And then there's a battle going on between JPMorgan and the Department of Justice. 2 months later, they changed. They were just regular manipulation charges. 2 months later, they changed it to RICO charges, which carries a penalty of 3 times the amount that you were messing with. So the whole thing behind JPMorgan is short silver to keep the price down and then take physical off the market. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, let it run loose. According to Ted Butler, they have about 1 billion ounces of physical silver. So JPMorgan would have to pay back 3 billion ounces of physical silver because RICO charges are 3 to 1. Mm-hmm. You can lose up to 3 to 1 what you stole. And let's see JPMorgan go in there and try to buy 3 billion ounces of silver.
Man, I hope so. Golly. So that's interesting. So it was the investigation into JPMorgan that initially spiked this repo problem, because
one of because it was definitely JPMorgan who removed themselves from the overnight repo market over the past year. A huge percentage of it was JPMorgan, who's the largest bank in the world. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think is connected to the derivatives, because they were mainly interest rate derivatives that JPMorgan added $11 trillion. They made an $11 trillion bet that they were going to rig the market down and cause chaos by the end of the year. That's the power of these criminal banksters in their system. Take them out of their system, they're useless. If we get out of a rehypothecated world of the Dow and the New York Stock Exchange rehypothecating shares, if you own any shares of companies on the New York Stock Exchange, you need to know that there's about 5 or 6 other people who own that same share that you do. And it is traded, look at the volumes. And this is the problem with the DTCC that's supposed to settle all trades. They don't settle any trades anymore. It is insane what is going on behind the scenes, but it is the end game. The end game was blow up the system as big as possible and then pop that bubble. And I think we're getting close to the pop that bubble time.
Man, it's it's been happening for years, really. I mean, if people you can go back and watch and read your work and watch your videos and interviews. I mean, we've been talking about this stuff for years, literally watching things unravel in different markets and different sectors. And it's, yeah, I wonder if I mean, certainly fireworks are going to have to go off. There's going to have to be some major events that take place. I wonder if we have an overnight crazy, hyperinflationary type event, or if this thing, like you said, maybe it's a freeze event. That makes a lot of sense, where the markets just freeze, and I can't imagine what happens to everyday people, trying to eat, feed their kids,
Well, that's the whole problem. And the reason the can has been kicked down the road since they found all that gold in the Grand Canyon is it would be too disruptive. Yeah. So they create the Federal Reserve System to delay the implementation of our application of the gold. And now that Bitcoin's around and the cryptocurrencies, do we really need a gold-backed system? I don't know. I mean, I know the old-time gold bugs want it, but do we need it? And the biggest problem now with gold is nobody knows how much gold there is in the world.
Well, and to your point, the good guys, don't want anybody, especially anybody with criminal or evil intent, to profit from this. And where, who holds all the gold? The Rothschilds and the freaking central bankers do.
And JPMorgan also owns literally billions of ounces of gold, not billions of dollars worth of gold. When they were buying all the physical silver, they were also buying massive amounts, taking delivery of massive amounts of physical gold. And Ted's talked about that as well. I mean, if you look at, 1 billion ounces of silver is worth $17 billion. The gold, I think it's in the hundreds of billions that JPMorgan has physically taken off of the markets while they suppress the price.
Well, and if we're talking about RICO investigations, I mean, that's all confiscatable, right? And then I guess it'd be redistributed in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I'm a long-term silver investor, stacker. So this is concerning, but I mean, the fundamentals for silver at $17 are just absurd. I mean, what if we had freely traded silver today without monetary crisis? What would we have? $100, $200, $300 silver? I mean, just raw fundamentals.
Nobody knows because it's been rigged. I mean, literally, if you go back in the history of silver, so the silver rigging really started in the 1850s, which is the Opium Wars with China. It was England versus China. All the people in England were buying the silks and the teas from China. So all the silver was flowing, and China was on a silver standard. All the silver was flowing out of England into China. So they set up HSBC in China to fund the opium markets and get the Chinese addicted on opium, which worked. And they required the Chinese to pay for their opium in silver, which brought silver back to England. That's the beginnings of HSBC, one of the most criminal banks, along with JPMorgan and Citibank. And pretty much all of them now are criminal, but the more criminal ones, HSBC, JPMorgan, obviously,
And there's
Scotiabank in the rigging of the metal markets.
Yeah, these aren't just claims that these are criminal banks. Like they've literally paid fines for rigging markets, trafficking gold, trafficking drugs. Literally, I mean, these are like viable charges that have been admitted to, and fines have been paid.
Well, you look at JPMorgan and Bernie Madoff. Yeah. Bernie Madoff was a $60 billion Ponzi scheme. I think it was 500 billion, but 60 billion is what they said. And JPMorgan and Bernie Madoff only had one banker. Only one bank laundered $60 billion worth of money, and it was JPMorgan. And that kind of money does not go unnoticed. That is board level approval.
Yeah. So
the JPMorgan, Jamie Dimon, all the senior management and the board had to approve that relationship. And talk about a KYC problem. I mean, and so Jamie Dimon and the board knew about the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. We all know it was more like a Mossad a payout for people. They had a huge trading, high-speed trading floor on the floor right below Bernie Madoff's office was their high-speed trading floor. It was deep state market trading to basically pay off people with money. That's how they were making their money, to pay off all these people in the deep state. So yeah, and read the book JP Madoff, and it literally explains how JP Morgan was not just a facilitator, but a participant, and a willing participant in the Bernie Madoff fraud.
Well, the bribery is a huge, it's a major piece to this puzzle, because the bribery, I was talking about this with one of my friends I mentioned, something came up, and maybe it was something about trafficking. And anyway, Oprah came up, and I was like, did you see what Seal just said about Seal, the musician, just publicly came out and said, I don't know verbatim, but like that she was pimping for Harvey Weinstein, right? Or you've allowed it to go to something, that she was complicit in Harvey's dealings. And Oprah on the surface, seems like a good person, right? The subject of bribery came up in how this criminal mafia is able to stay in power so long, and how they're able to take otherwise potentially good people, maybe let's just assume like an Oprah, and bribe them and blackmail them and convert them to the dark side, if you will, maybe where they're not totally complicit in criminal activity, but they're allowing it, or they're turning a shoulder to it, or whatever. But that bribery, where's all that money come? And it's not just money to pay off. I mean, we know a lot of the other sinister stuff that they do to keep people under their thumb, right? But the bribery piece is huge. Like where's that money coming from? Right there,
Absolutely. And yeah, the Epstein stuff and the Weinstein stuff, they're all connected. Adam Schiff is connected with the Standard Hotel, which is like, you go down that path, it's about as bad as it gets in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So
hole goes deep.
Yeah. Hey, we could go on for days, and we will. We're trying to get down to see, Amy and I are trying to get down to see you guys after Christmas. I know you're heading off soon after Christmas, but we're going to try to get down there and hook up in person and hug you guys.
I would love that.
Your family, damn it. You guys are family. So, hey,
love you, man. Tell
everybody about where to get in touch with you, how to buy cryptos, and how to get self-directed IRA.
Yeah, thanks, man. Perpetualassets.com. You can call us, 888-281-2630, or go on the website and email us or contact us. Yeah, and we're happy to help. We're happy to, people call us with questions and hey, I'm not sure if I can roll over my IRA because I'm in this 401k at work or whatever. We're happy to just help if we can. So, obviously we're here to make a profit as well, but there's a big service being provided here in helping people get their money out of the system, those that are paying attention and that want to, and get them into tangible assets, metals, cryptos, even real estate or private equity, if it's, if that suits you. But yeah, man, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It's always a blast. And I mean, watching this whole circus play out, there's plenty to talk about, and I'm sure we'll be on again to continue the coverage. And here's to a good 2019. Merry Christmas. And yeah, 2020, here we come. Year zero.
All right. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Will Lehr, perpetualassets.com. Like and subscribe to this video. If you have friends who can benefit from someone who can get them large amounts of cryptos or anything over 10,000, call Will at Perpetual Assets. I want to thank Will for being on, and we will talk to you soon, buddy.
Sounds good, brother. Take care.